Hello, hello.
Oh,
Hi, Fred. I just saw Fred at something in Houston. He said, I'm going to see you again.
Yeah, I took some pictures and I posted something on LinkedIn, so I can send you those pictures if you
Oh,
like.
thank you. I haven't even had time to see that. So I appreciate that.
Sure thing.
we'll give it
Hi,
another
Harvey.
minute. Hey, Harvey. Hi, Katie.
Hi there.
I couldn't find me. I'm just doing so great at this stuff, Lane.
Hey, Harvey. I've known you from the beginning. You've come a long way, my friend. You've become an expert in technology.
I'm telling you, I even set up my own Zoom today.
Say, Lane, we're gonna have to fight for him.
Kim, you and I have to have a conversation later in the week. I need education.
It is late in the week.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
next week.
I'm already writing off the next 2 days, so I'm looking very forward to seeing those of you who will be attending tomorrow. I know there's a few who are on the call, so can't wait.
Who's going to be there tomorrow from this group here now?
From this group here, Kim
Yeah.
will be there, Jill Van will be there, Patrick Delahanty will be there. And Fred was supposed to, but had a quick change of plan, but that's okay.
Killing me.
We'll toast him a bunch.
Mm.
But we got a great crowd coming.
Jill Mazer will be representing the Texas contingency.
And Amanda Potter.
Amanda?
Yeah,
Oh,
Amanda
okay.
Potter is coming too
Okay.
last minute.
All right, great.
So, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room, Catherine. We might as well
Ready for me to start?
get started. So
Okay.
thank you all again for joining. Welcome to Catherine's LinkedIn series. Happy to host, and take it away, Catherine.
Super. Well, let's do this. I'm excited. All right. So let me get myself situated here. We're going to do a brief review because some of you have been coming in at different points. And also I think that I keep coming up with great examples of things that we want to do and not do. And so if you remember, just by way of review, be sure, number one, please mute yourself if you are not currently muted, and I will pause and tell you to unmute yourself and invite conversation periodically throughout the time. So if you've missed the other two LinkedIn's, we're so glad you're here, and I think you'll still get benefit from this. You're going to want to ask for I have a 25-minute webinar that is on 3 things to do to update your LinkedIn profile. That is a shorter version than class 1, which was of the same topic. And that is a quick catch up for you. If you are just now jumping in, we're glad you're here. And you're going to want to email me, which my contact information will be at the end, or Kim or Lane could put it in the chat if you all don't mind doing that while I'm teaching. But you can ask me for that webinar, and otherwise just enjoy, jump in, and we always send notes and follow-up worksheets and things like that after each class. So class 1 and 2, the 2 prior weeks were focused on profiles. And I shared some things to keep in mind for your about section, namely that your about section really is not so much anymore a summary of your professional experience, which is your resume in the second half of your profile, but that the about section you should be thinking about a prospect, looking at it and saying, do I understand what this person does? So I like to talk about what I call the customer focused value proposition. The way I teach people to describe what they sell is to make sure that the first sentence is starting out with a problem that your common client experiences, or to name what they're hoping to get as an outcome. It can also be naming the positive and say, people are looking for a way for this to be true. Here's how I provide that. And in the second and third sentence, you go on to explain how you do that. So I give you the formula for that. I talk about that both in the webinar as well as in class 1 and 2. And then last time, those of you that missed it, Bill Brady gave us some tips on taking great pictures. So you don't necessarily have to get professional pictures done to update your profile picture, although Bill does do headshots. And we'd love to have your business, and you, of course, should call him if you want to get help with that. But he also gave us tips for doing your own great pictures. And so that's also something we've covered. today we're going to talk about what goes through my mind when I decide what to post. And next week, we're going to bring it all together and we're going to talk about how LinkedIn fits in an overall sales sequence in my mind. So when Lane says, you've heard him say in V5O before that I get all of my clients through LinkedIn, it isn't that the whole sales cycle is occurring inside LinkedIn. It's that everyone I serve is on LinkedIn and that we are using LinkedIn as a tool in that process every time. So I will show you next week what that looks like. But today we're still building on your professional brand because we're saying when someone comes and looks at your profile and looks at your activity history, what kinds of things do you post and can they tell what you're about? Can they tell what you personally stand for? This example here is an example of what I would say not to do. This is a live example. This is not anyone here in our group, but I'm in another group of professional marketers and they were kind enough to pull the name away, but somebody shared this recently as an example of what something looks like when it's filled with so much jargon that no one outside the industry knows what you do. So let's read this together. Just hear what a mouthful this is. This is literally on someone's about section. Strategic problem solver creates tactical solutions and executes with urgency across all levels of an organization, always with an eye toward profit improvement. Leverages extensive background in finance combined with talents in project management and leadership to create shared vision and engagement. Influential decision maker utilizing exceptional communication and interpersonal skills to cultivate and manage working relationships with vendors, internal and external stakeholders at all levels. Somebody unmute yourself and tell me, what does this person do? Like, what is their job?
I would say their job is to find words that nobody could understand. Because it looks like it looks like they're searching for impressive expressions and words to make them look smarter than maybe they are, or maybe they just don't believe how smart they are.
Right, Harvey, I'll Venmo you your tip later for that. No, I didn't know Harvey was going to say that. I mean, I don't know what this person's job is. Any other guesses?
My guess is that this person, which I can relate to because I've talked like this a lot, somebody who wants to be all things to all people.
And they might have a broad management background. That's the other thing I'm thinking, Christian, is like maybe they have an eye toward profit. They want you to know, like maybe they've been a COO and they want you to know that they're looking at that even though they're not a CFO. I appreciate the points you're making. Yeah. So this is an example where it meant a lot to the person, but to us, without any context, that's the question I would ask you. And I still invite you. I mentioned this after week 1, but if you didn't make it or you're just now getting to update your profile, it would be my pleasure to review it if you want to take a stab at your own about section and you would like me to look at it. But I call it the Starbucks test. If you can imagine showing someone the top half of your profile and you just hand it over to them, hand over your phone or hand over a laptop and say, what do you think I do? If they can't tell you, that matters because they're a stranger and so are the people who are going to be looking at your profile. So we want to be able to pass the Starbucks test. So with that, to do that, we have to have words that are 8th or 9th grade level words. We want to be free of jargon and we want to be really what may feel to us like it's ridiculously simple, but that simplicity is a gift to people who we really want to serve and who might want to connect with us because they don't always use the same language we do. So this is a sort of my summary reminder, like don't do this. This is a real profile. Don't go find the person. That'd be mean. You probably could if you search hard enough with enough words and combinations. But this is an example to say we all have various versions of this, and we want to use it as a kind of a hyperbole of saying this is extreme, but be careful where we're doing this in pieces and parts. All right. So why are we on LinkedIn? We want to build our influence for good. I call it sales power. Our sales power is not so we can be manipulative and persuasive to people who are not the right people for us to serve, but that we influence people who have opted into our network in ways that will help make their life and their business better. And so in a way, we're all mini influencers. That goes to the point about how we all have a professional brand. We talked last time about how a brand is a combination of the content that you share and the images that you share. And remember, I told you last time, you might just have 5 pictures. Like, you do not have to invest in a very, very expensive photo shoot, but you want to give some thought to picture consistency and imagery, and even use the same images over and over again, because I heard someone say once that marketing is an exercise in memorization. And I think that's very interesting, because really, if we show up again and again the same way, we might be thinking, I don't know if I can use that picture again. But what feels maybe worrisome to us, to others, could look like brand consistency. So your professional brand is made up of content and images. Now, we're going to talk now about how we decide what to post. When I am writing a post, I literally am thinking about a person. I have a person or a group of clients in my mind. So I might be thinking, for example, I have a Wednesday afternoon group coaching. It's mostly small business entrepreneurs in that group. And sometimes I tag some of the people in there. But I am thinking, like, Lisa's been in that group. You all know Lisa Atkinson. I think would this make sense to Lisa? Would she enjoy it? Would this make sense to so-and-so? Would they enjoy it? Who do I have in mind when I'm posting? Even though you're going out onto the interwebs to the whole world, you'll write better posts if you think about it going to your ideal buyer or an ideal partner or whoever it is that you're addressing. And I'll give you some examples of that. Another thing to keep in mind, so we just talked about the audience. Another thing to keep in mind is we're thinking through, what do I know how to do? That's going to get to the 3 E's, which I'll review for you in just a moment. And we're also thinking, what is unique about how I help? This gets to this idea we covered last week. I'll come back to the no-nos in just a second. Remember our 3 E's. So some of you were not able to make it, so I'm going to do a brief review. I also have one example of a post that falls under each of these. So I got these 3 E's from a friend of mine. His name is Mark Hodgson. He is a branding consultant out of Australia. I follow him. I've taken his course. He has a longer LinkedIn course, which I have a link to at the end of this. If you're interested in doing something in more depth, he is really a full-time professional branding trainer. And what I'm doing is using just little pieces plus what I figured out for myself as a super user to share with you. But I give him all the credit for the 3 E's. This is his paradigm. And I think it's so interesting because he's saying, this is the breakdown of your professional brand. On LinkedIn, what can people derive about your experience, your expertise, and your essence? Now, experience could be the totality of my career. It could be my experience in this certain domain. It could be a portion of time of my work. What you choose to put out there is up to you. But I'm talking about broad brush. Expertise is like, what do I know how to do? Okay, what does Becky know how to do? What does Greg know how to do? What does Lane know how to do? So when I do posts like this, that's where I say things like, Friday afternoons are a great time to call people. When I was a recruiter for a zillion years, this is when people answer their phone. That is an example of expertise that I've gathered, that I know some best practices that I can share. And that's actually the example I'm going to show you with my LinkedIn post in a second. Essence is fun. Essence is like, who is my to be, T-O space B-E verb. It's my am. Who am I? That I want to go out to the world, and what will I show you about myself? So this sometimes sometimes people show a little bit of personal stuff, and sometimes it's also about causes, or it's about your passion projects, or it could be about your colleagues. In my case, I reshare a lot, and I brag on friends a lot. That's something that I just derive a tremendous amount of pleasure for promoting other people. It's something that's one of my superpowers. And so that's coming out of me. I want them to get business from accessing my network. And it's part of my brand is that I'm a person who's willing to do that. So that is an example of my essence. Let me show you 3 examples. And then we're going to talk about how do I decide specifically what to say. on this idea of experience. I'm going to read this because the print's kind of small depending on what kind of device you're on. So this is what I was referencing about doing your sales calls on Fridays. So this was a post from just 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. It says 4 days ago, but that's when I pulled the picture. This was on a Friday morning, and it said, don't start your weekend yet. Today can be your best sales day of the week. Prospect, follow up, don't give up. Why? Because it's follow up Friday. I've started to do these reminders on Friday. I think it's fun. And also, Brian always participates. Brian Bearden always participates, which I appreciate, Brian. No pressure to continue, but he is a big follow-up on Friday. So we like to check in with each other and see how we did. And it's fun to have that dialogue in front of other people. So I said, when I was a recruiter, Friday afternoons were the times my prospects made time for my calls. These folks are looking forward to the weekend too, friends. If you do your outstanding revenue generating activities and don't give up, you will be rewarded. I promise. Here's what will happen if you keep going. First, you know that you did what you set to do, and that gives you sales power. Go for no, because that's a book that some people would recognize. It's okay if you don't. Finish your list, don't quit early, keep that contract with yourself. Number two, you'll likely get your emails, in-mails, calls, and text returns because Fridays are great times for people to talk to prospects in the office. Ask my friend Brian Bearden or my friends in recruiting, and I tag these 2 recruiters I used to work with. We've been selling on Friday for years. I can't wait to see how your Friday sales calls are going. So I started to do this every Friday, and people are starting to watch for this, and they come and share when they made connections. They don't name the company, but Brian, go ahead and unmute. I saw you pop in. Go ahead and unmute and give an example of like what kind of comment you might put to something like this.
Like last week, I think it was, I actually had calls at 4, 4:30, and 5, and actually made sales at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. So yeah, I'm big into the fact that it's kind of like a reminder that, hey, it's Friday, what are you doing? And I'm glad to share that I did it at 4, 4:30, and 5 o'clock Central Standard Time.
Right. And so I get to be in front of all Brian's contacts. Brian gets to be in front of all my contacts because I tagged him. But you all know, if any of you add a comment, that's true for you as well. Then our networks are connected. So why would I make this be an example of experience? Well, because I want people to know I've been selling for so long that I have seen these patterns emerge. And that is part of my professional brand, is saying, you know, I might not have trained someone in the exact thing you do, but there's chances are I've done something quite similar because I've been at it for a while. So that builds credibility for me with this specific example. Let me go on to 2 more examples, then I'll take time for questions before we go on. Experience. So this is meant to be broader, and this is an example I put for that. Do you talk about yourself and your product or solution before you acknowledge the challenge that your prospect is experiencing? Well, stop doing that. We all feel inundated about being sold to. No one wants to sit through a presentation. We want to see ourselves in sellers' examples and opt in to learn more about what they sell. I teach the principle called them before me. You guys have seen that. I covered that in class 1 here. Make sure on your sales calls, in your voicemails, on your brochures, on your website, and in your posts on LinkedIn that you talk about your prospects' needs and wants before you talk about how you solve them. This kind of writing is what helps your prospects raise their hands. And we all want hand raisers, right? So this is something I really teach about. So this would be like the equivalent of one of you talking about a more specific product or service. This idea of them before me and the way I teach people to write a value proposition, this is basically me teaching through the post. You get it for free, other people pay for it in a course. So that is an example of something I did under this kind of E. Finally, this is an example of one of those referral posts. I said, friends who want to be known, not only friends who want to be known for not only having clear marketing, but also a generous professional brand, join my friend Terumi Okano's program. She's a marketer. Check out her, DM me for questions about her. I know her well. I can vouch for her awesomeness. So this was just a nice thing for me to do. And I really like Terumi. She's paid for services from me before, but that's not why I did it. I trust her. I saw that she had this going on. And so what this was actually me sharing a course she had, and this was the post at the top. So I vouched for her as I shared the post. I didn't have to do that. She didn't, in this case, she didn't ask me to do it, but I like doing things like that. So to me, this falls under the essence. This is sort of, who is Catherine? Let me pause and have you ask me about either my choice of the post or the 3 E's or anything about this so far before I start showing how I think through what I'm going to do. Just unmute yourself. I'm going to stop share for a second so I can see everybody better. Put on my glasses. Anybody have a question? Raise your hand. Or I think I can see everybody on the same screen today. So just unmute and let me know. Brian.
So I have a question, and this may be a little bit different, is most of your posts have pictures of you
Yes.
in
Yes,
different
that's-
scenarios. So
that's
every
true.
time you post you, which I thought
Well-
was very, well, okay. The majority of them
Go ahead.
that you're talking about have a picture of you, which I thought was very unique.
Yes, and
I know there's some kind of strategy behind it.
yes, so it is a great question, Brian. And I'm very open to suggestions on this. You don't have to do it right now, but you can take it offline. I'll tell you my thinking about that. That does come out of just my own invention. But I do want so first of all, I did a photo shoot around the books. So I have recent pictures, and I feel very strongly that you should use pictures that are relatively recent so that if you ever really meet the person, they think you look like the pictures online. So my redoing those photos around my book launch was part of me saying, you know, really, I'm 10 pounds heavier and 5 years older than the last time I did this. And this is me. Okay, this is me. And I'm going to be all of me. And this is me just being consistent. So I'm showing up. This is my very best self. And just choosing to be proud of that, even though I wish I were 10 pounds lighter and 5 years younger. So I'm using the pictures that were part of that. I want people to use me for speaking. So I want them to get used to my face. And then part of it, Brian, is that I'm in the process of taking quotes from my book, and I'm going to wrap that around the blue and the white of the book with How Good Humans Sell, but I just don't have them created yet. So I do plan to transition to have that be more about the How Good Humans Sell brand and less with mine. But part of why I was using those is because they were some of the most recent I had. And I don't like when people use stuff from a long time ago, so I didn't want to do that. So totally open to, you know, other thoughts and suggestions about that.
Catherine, I want to offer that, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I'm 5 years younger or 10 pounds lighter. I'll offer my own person and image, so you can use mine when you have your sayings. I offer myself for free of charge.
Thanks, Amir. Only if I can have yours in different parts of the world. You have to like put yourself and your face in Venice. Any other questions? You know, Brian, I really like your question. And I guess let me put it back out to the group, because there's some, you know, there's some strong marketers in the group here. If you don't do photos of yourself, you have to sort of double down, I think, on what's your consistent brand imagery going to be if it's not you. Because if you just grab random stock photos, you can't control. I mean, you could, you know, I guess you could try to curate that list, but I think it's hard to achieve that color and photo consistency without some pretty careful planning. So what else have you seen people do that you liked? Anybody?
No, I thought what you did was really good. What I really like about it is you have follow-up Friday, or you have consistent Fridays. You know, you post on Fridays. And so what's interesting, just as a quick story, is I post on Thursdays, which is Brian's Education Thursday. And this is where I educate my followers on one of my clients' products. And now I have clients that are actually asking to be on the Thursday education, because they're like,
Really?
hey, we saw people commenting and we'd like to be on it. So that's the reason why last Thursday you saw me shooting a video about self-storage rental because I went to visit one of my self-storage rental customers, and they were like educating me on self-storage rental. So I educated my followers. So I commend you because you do have the follow-up Friday. And I have a feeling you have followers who follow you because they know that Friday you're going to be talking about something like that. And so I think the word that comes across is consistency.
Yes.
You know, you're
Yeah.
consistently doing it on a scheduled date. So if I'm not doing anything on LinkedIn, like this week's been pretty busy, I know that you are probably going to have something that's going to be like a cool tip on Friday.
Cool.
Just like a lot of people know that I do this Education Thursday, and they're like, oh, Brian's probably going to come out with some crazy thing on Thursday again. So.
And you all have all followed people who have done something. Motivation Monday. It doesn't have to be an alliteration, but it's fun when you can. Thankful Thursday, right? But yeah, I think, isn't it interesting that we all, it's like a liturgy, you know, like, you know, a lot of you know that religious term. That's a term that's used across lots of religions and denominations, right? But if you show up and you go to a different parish or a different synagogue or a different, you know, a different temple, you can walk in and in a lot of places expect to hear the same things. It's very comforting to people. They like that routine. People like routine. Okay. Okay, excuse me just a second. I'm having a slight, what would you call him?
Catherine, I wanted to share one comment relative to the question that Brian asked about you posting with your pictures. I think that, you know, when you check out Facebook, which is a lot more personal than professional, I think, I don't know, I think I saw a survey, over 67% of pictures on Facebook are people having food, which is indicative of what the comfort zone for people is. Eating, and that's where they feel happy. When you come on LinkedIn and it is a professional setting, everyone, like I post different things that are newsworthy, I feel. And when you put, I must compliment, you have a very nice face as well. When you put your nice face out there with the quotes and whatever information that you're sharing, I think that that goes a long way on firming up your branding and the confidence level that you're projecting. This is who I am. This is the value I offer. If you like what you see, come back again. That is the message that I get from your messages on LinkedIn. Commentary.
Thanks, Amir. And so let me say this. I think that people, this is what people do. You don't have to call yourself out. You know what's going on in your mind and heart at this moment. Some people see somebody else and they think, well, she can do that, but I can't do that. But what I'm telling you with this group of people who are quickly becoming friends is that every time I post, I think the same thing everybody else thinks, which is, am I enough? Is this good enough? Everybody thinks that way. Everybody has imposter syndrome. Everybody worries if their post is going to look dumb. Everybody thinks, is follow-up Friday a really smart marketing consistency thing, or do people think I don't have a new thought? Everybody has those thoughts from time to time. Some people is more pervasive than others, but the difference between me and a lot of people is that I just do it anyway. And I really want to encourage you to take a risk, because we don't love something until we get good at it, and we can't get good at it until we practice. So you've got to practice. Whatever habit you're willing to generate. You don't have to be on there 3 times a day like Fred is. He has scheduled times. I already told you I'm on 30 full minutes every morning, and then I catch can later in the day. You don't have to do that. You could do every other day. You can only go on Fridays. If you do that, you're going to be on for an hour because you're going to have a lot of stuff to read. But that's your decision. That's your farm. That's not anybody else's decision. So whatever it is, you pick it and you practice and you keep going. Okay, so let me show you a couple things next. We're going to keep going on this. And so here's some questions I start to ask myself when I want to write an interesting post. I'm asking myself, what is going on in my world? What is going on in my industry? So as I'm reading other people's things, I'm taking note. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. They're talking about that. That was clever. Oh, I read this in the trade publication. Oh, this is when the New York Times email this morning, the email summary that goes out every morning. Or I think the Fortune CEO sends an email Monday through Fridays, and the Fortune news summary is awesome, Fortune magazine. So I would encourage anybody to get that. That's where you can just get a high level summary of what's happening and figure out how that's germane to the work that you do. What do I think about what's going on? What do I think about the trends of whatever other people are posting? I'm also asking myself, how do I know what I know? How do you know what you know? This will take you down a whole thought process I'll take you through in a minute. What are the calls to action of what you think people should do according to what you know about? If you are an executive coach, there's all kinds of things you know that have become second nature to you, but they're not obvious to other people. So that's an example of, you know what, people need to do these certain things to take care of themselves. And if they would do these certain things, then they would feel better. And that would be an example of something that is a what should people do kind of thought. So you might specifically prescribe ways to help, and you might have calls to action. These are all the kind of thoughts that are going through my head when I'm posting. Now I'm going to show you this screen, then I'm going to pull it down, and then I'm going to show you a closer up of this if we need to, but it's the same thing. I made this up. Okay, I've told you, I am a LinkedIn super user. I am not a LinkedIn professional trainer. I teach people to sell, and LinkedIn is a tool in that process. I am not a branding expert, but I thought through with those 3 E's, I thought through, how do we decide what our themes are going to be? And how is it that I can now come up with content so easily with practice? Well, this is what was in my brain. So going across the top with me, see how it says in Excel, what would be column A? It's product, your product or service. You name another product or service. You name another product or service. You name another product or service. This is of you personally with your company, or something you sell or something you offer. And then you could have 4 blocks that are about your expertise. So this might be, let's see, let's pick someone as an example. Fred Costa, can we make you an example? Can you unmute?
Yeah, can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
It's okay. Can we make you an example, just because I think that your IT stuff would be really helpful here for people. So if you were, so we're going to pick 4 products or services that your firm offers, and I'm going to just be writing these down because I can't type it on the grid fast enough. Tell me 4 different things that your company sells.
Cybersecurity, managed services, disaster recovery planning, and structured cabling.
Disaster recovery and structured
Cabling?
CABL.
Yes.
ING. Okay, great. And tell me, in the category now, continuing to go across on the very top here, expertise, 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 expertise. Now I'm talking about you. Now I'm talking about Fred. What do you know how to do in a professional sense that could fit in these 4 categories? You're like, I'm very good at X. What is X?
So am I reading down the left or?
Nope, you're going across, you're filling in expertise, expertise, expertise. So don't answer the questions down the left. I'm across the right. I'm across the top. I just want you to tell me 4 things that are your expertise.
Very good at business development.
Okay.
Very good at customer retention.
Okay.
35 years in information technology.
Okay.
and have to ask my wife. Let's see, I'm joking. Let's see, cybersecurity.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. I think those are fine, but I would like you to think a little bit more about how expertise kind of bumps up against essence with that other E, like, what are you good at? So like, if someone says, Catherine, what are you good at? That's still in a professional domain. I would say, oh, thinking of people who need to meet each other. Right? Like, I'm really good at that. That's my expertise that happens to also work well inside my business. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm really good at networking infrastructure.
Okay, awesome. You just see stuff that other people can't see. You think of it faster. What does that mean?
I've the 35 years in information technology has allowed me to be able to assess problems fairly quickly and give clients a solution.
Awesome. So networking infrastructure problem diagnoses. Love it. Okay, what else? That's about you.
Oh, good. Going back to, I'm very good sales. I don't know if that's something that I would put in.
Yeah.
Sorry, going to hear my dog in the background.
I barely hear him. Okay, so selling. So
I have about a 95% close rate if I get in front of someone.
that's amazing. That's awesome. Okay, great. What else? One more thing.
I'm very good at networking.
You are very good at networking. Okay, great. So let me bring the PDF up because I'm going to send you guys this. I'm going to share a fillable PDF with you to do this for yourself. Here we go. So you're going to see my, guys, don't laugh. We're among friends, right? No, I don't want to stop recording. Hang on. I want to share the screen. Sorry. I don't know why I'm struggling, Kim. You guys don't see the PDF, do you?
No.
Okay,
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah, your share screen should still be there.
Okay, you seeing that?
Yep.
Okay, so I think that this is a word table problem, so apologies because I'll fix this before we send it out. But what should happen is we need a blank line between the top blue and the left column, because I want you to do is I want you to keep the product or service listed. Product, service, product, service, product, service, product, service, and then expertise, 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 expertise. You need to keep that there. So I need to raise a row so that you keep that line, and then we start answering the questions down the left side. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying? So on Fred, if we have, for example, under expertise, under product and service, he had cybersecurity. So we're going to say the cybersecurity services that his firm offers. We're going to start answering the questions about the cybersecurity down the left side. So we're going to ask ourselves things like, well, how does that help other people be more successful? And we're going to fill it in. How does his cybersecurity help his clients feel more comfortable? You're going to fill it in. How does his cybersecurity, well, that's a perfect one. How does that help people feel more secure? He can share statistics, right? It could be a customer testimony. You're going to answer, what's a little known fact about cybersecurity? Tell me why you love, like, nerd out on me. Why do you love cybersecurity? Because that's like part of who you are, right? Why does this thing matter in the world? What's going on in the news about cybersecurity? And what happens if people don't get this from you? That's what the bottom says. What happens if they don't get this, learn this, or do this? That's like a little bit of hint about risk. Like if you don't learn the secret sauce, you could be left behind in the following ways, right? Or you could, in the realm of cybersecurity, you're vulnerable, right? So you could share information about that. We just came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things just about cybersecurity. So you could stay on cybersecurity for 8 days in a row. You could mix and match it like bingo if you wanted, or you could even decide, Fred, you might have so much experience in this, you could have each one of these topics where cybersecurity meets how does this make people feel more comfortable? You could do that for 5 days in a row. Because you could alternate a case study, a quote from somebody famous, something in the news about this, descriptions of your own product, and then a special offer with a call to action about something you're going to do or host that's about cybersecurity. You see what I'm saying? You see how many themes you can get? So what we will do in my firm, we use something like this. It's actually not even quite as beautiful as this, if you can believe it, because it's all kind of in our heads because we've been doing it for so long. My email marketing and my social posts that go out from Extra Bold Sales, we have a theme of the month. Those of you who have followed me have never noticed there's a theme of the month. It does not look boring. It's nothing you could tell, but it's so that my copywriter who helps me, in addition to the personal posting I do, it's so every day we're not logging in thinking, what the heck am I going to talk about? We've already decided. You could do that too by filling out this grid. Okay, so who wants to go next? Fred, first of all, do you have questions about that? And what do you think about that idea?
Oh, that's so perfect because it gives me something to go off of because I'm always floundering. I mean, I have all the content in my head, and then when it comes to, I'm trying to pick and choose, and usually I'm, taking somebody else's post and copying it, I'm not giving my original content. So yeah, this is perfect.
I think that you all could fill this out. It might take you an hour, 90 minutes. I mean, it's going to take you a little while because if you aren't a super frequent poster, you're going to have to sit and stare at the grid and think through, well, why does this thing matter in the world? I don't know. Why does it matter? I mean, you might want to do it with someone. Pick a partner, a friend, a colleague, an employee, so you can brainstorm together and you're not alone in doing this. But once you have it, depending on how deep you could go into each subject, I mean, this could keep you busy for months, depending on how often you post. The part that is the really genius marketing, and I learned this from other people. I'm not saying that Catherine Brown is a genius. Catherine Brown is a genius learner of other people. The part that really makes people stand out on LinkedIn is when you take the product and service and the expertise and you answer these questions that are a little bit more of the touchy-feely questions on the left side. When you start talking about why it matters or why you love it, or what's a little known fact, you move from just talking about services and products, which is actually product marketing, into content marketing, which gets into more about your own opinions and all the other reasons people buy. Because why will people ultimately buy cybersecurity? Well, they either are doing it after the fact because they've been hacked, right? Or they're scared. And the being scared, they should be, right? Because it's a really big deal to have your stuff breached. And so you want to appeal to that because those emotional things that make people feel connected to your brand are also what they buy, not just the services themselves. Lane, you had a question.
Yes, I didn't want to go next, but I wanted to comment on something, an observation. Because when you singled out Fred, and good job, Fred, getting through it. It's never easy to get singled out on the spot. I was looking at a little bit of the psychology behind this and the way Fred was answering. When you talk about expertise, Fred was focused on the business side of it. But
Right.
as soon as you pulled in essence, it makes you question that personal side. And I think a lot of people struggle with the essence because they don't get the validation of their peers. And what I've observed over time, and when Fred was talking, I wanted to jump in and tell everybody what Fred's essence is because I've gotten to know him. And I think if I validate that to him, it's more comfortable. It soaks in and says, oh, and one thing I've learned is through our community, I've asked everybody to make as many recommendations as they can for all the other members. The recommendations that I've gotten over the days and weeks has absolutely validated the essence that I believed I had and who I am as a person. So I would recommend everybody look at the recommendations you receive because that's how people think about you. And in turn, it reverses, and that is your outbound essence of the image that you're projecting to people.
Yes.
If you know what I was getting at, I was thinking about that a lot, and I wanted Fred to talk more about his personal essence because I was going to say things. When you're speaking to Fred, he actually allows you to validate what your beliefs in because he either agrees, disagrees, critiques it, and engages in a collaborative discussion. Fred brings this kind of warming sense to conversations because he's an excellent listener. And he's able, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm married, and thank you for that. And I get put on the spot a lot, so that's the whole reason I'm good at things. Just saying.
So I want to show you something, and then I'll go to whether we have other questions. I'm going to go back real quick to the PowerPoint because I want you to observe something that I don't want to lose because we could accidentally lose this. I want you to notice with these examples I give, because this is the tricky part that I think really separates sort of pros from novices, but you can totally do it. If you remember in lesson 1 and 2, this them before me concept that I reference in actually this slide, right? We're talking about them before me. The reason I gave you a link to the customer focused value proposition is because I wanted you to practice making the first sentence that you write be about the person you serve and not be always talking about yourself in the first sentence, which is what we tend to do because we're thinking I'm posting on my profile. But this is like, and it would be better for you to post with the first sentence being about you than to not post at all. Okay. But game on, level up is to also fill out the grid, figure out what those answers are to your expertise, your essence, and your experience, answer the questions, fill it out. And then when you write the post, keep in mind who your reader is and follow that principle of them before me. So I am doing that in these examples. I want you to observe that I have just memorized how to do this, and I mostly follow that formula. And I typically correct myself when I don't. So I'm writing to one person. I'm actually imagining I'm talking to Brian here. I'm only kind of half kidding, but like I know Brian, will probably comment on this, which I really appreciate. So I'm thinking of Brian when I'm writing. And so I'm basically saying, friend, don't start your weekend yet. Today can be your best sales day of the week. Prospect follow-up, don't give up. I jump into talking about them, and I didn't start out the other way. Did you notice? It doesn't say, when I was a recruiter, Friday afternoons were the times my prospect made times from my calls. That's not the most terrible thing in the world. It's better to do that than to not post. But those paragraphs are in that order for a certain reason, because I'm trying to talk about myself second or third, and I'm trying to give advice, recommendations, or list what my ideal customer is trying to accomplish. I'm trying to list that before I talk about my own authority. Are you tracking with me? Even in the posts. Okay, look at the next post. I literally say, hey, Don't talk about yourself and your products or solution before you acknowledge the challenge that your prospects experience. Do you do that? Well, stop. So talk to them first. Then I say, we all feel inundated. Then 1, 2, 3 sections down with some white space, I say, oh, this problem people experience, by the way, I teach the principle of them before me. Make sure on your sales calls and your voicemails, on your brochures, on your website, that you talk about your prospect needs and wants before you talk about how you solve them. So this is something I teach, and I modeled it by making myself be the subject of the sentences later down and not when I started. That is like, that's advanced. But you guys are smart people, and I want to make sure I provide the continuity to this idea of them before me, and why the heck I sent you the value proposition stuff and said, take a stab at this and think about this principle in your about section, because if you practice that in your about section, as you write more and more posts, you can also practice the principle of talking about yourself second, even as you go through the grid, even as you go through this. Okay, so let me show you. I'll just keep this up for now so I don't have to stop share again. But here's our grid. So we have a little bit more time. Just watch my time here. Okay. Who wants to try to fill this in with help from the group? Anybody struggling and they think, Catherine, don't leave me on my own. I don't want to do this by myself. Does anybody want to be live case studied?
We're all afraid, so I'll step up.
Oh, I was
I'm
going to
afraid.
say, I'll jump in.
I'm
was
afraid.
gonna
I'm really
nominate
afraid to
Christian.
do this.
Go
I'm
for
really
it,
afraid.
Christian.
I'm really afraid to do this because this is an email between Catherine and myself, actually, by the way, isn't it?
Okay, I had several people talking at a time, so you guys duke it out. Who are we going to do?
Well,
Ladies
I'll
first.
guinea pig, Catherine, because I thought of, as you were talking to Fred, it's amazing what comes to your mind when you say, what are you good at? And we never talk about that in a business sense. So I was thinking about what my friends might say or have
Okay.
said,
Okay.
and why clients might be attracted to my part of us in our business.
Uh-huh.
So I did get
Okay.
some of those points.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can
And
talk to
Becky,
you about what
you're-
we do all day long, but
Yeah. I mean, so let's take, 2 minutes and get through as many of these as we can, because I know Becky from Houston and she's jumped into this class, but not all of you know her. So Becky, let's just use this product service expertise. Let's start at the top and use that as a way for people to hear what you do. And then we'll start to answer some of the questions down the left side.
oh, good. Okay, so in terms of products and services, we're a PR firm. And so we write articles, news releases, blogs, social content, some web
Okay.
content. I guess that's a blog. So that's one thing. We create communication plans. There's a fun one.
But you know what? People need it.
It is
Okay.
valuable. I think we create, this is really good, like this template. We provide counsel, like strategic counsel.
Right. Is it like,
clients.
do you do like disaster mitigation, emergency
can-
stuff?
We can do that, but it might be more strategic in terms of, are your sales are your messaging matching across your sales and all of your channels through which you communicate.
Okay. Okay. So consistent communication counsel. Okay. And what about, will you get me on shows and stuff? Like, do you do placement, media placement?
Yeah, that would be like media relations. That's correct. News interviews, yes.
Okay. So if I were you, Becky, I think there's so many there, like you could have, your line could be like 12 across.
Oh,
Because what you lumped as write articles, news releases, and social content could each be its own thing.
Yep.
Right. Then create communication plans. That's number 4. Then provide counsel about consistent communication. That's number 5, media relations, and then name all the kind of media. Because
Yep.
this is a case, you all, where what is easy for you, nobody else knows how to do.
Right.
I don't know squat. So if she starts talking about getting in trade publications and her firm's going to help me get in a top trade publication. And then we go down the left side and you start telling me little known facts about this and why you love this work and why this matters in the world. And what does the news say about this? And what happens if I don't get this? Oh my gosh. I don't know any of those answers. I mean, that would be so interesting to me because I'd like to be written about in more publications. So that would be really interesting to me. I
Hopefully
mean, I'm
everyone
more
here
your ideal
does.
customer than, not everybody's an ideal customer, but like that would be very interesting to me because I don't know much about it and I'm wondering if it would benefit me. Okay. Do you have any questions about, did anything on the left seem weird? Do you feel like you can fill it in, or do you see where I was driving with the question I was asking?
I do. And I think, yes, this helps me flip a little bit in my thinking from some other coaching that we've done, like business coaching. And one of the things we've learned is you've got to overcome people's resistance to buying by addressing the discomfort. And so when they overcome it, you know you're going to make them feel better. And that's where all this goes. And that's sort of a convoluted way to say it.
I particularly, this is kind of this in the marketing world that I've been trained in, we call this the philosophical problem, but I actually love the question. You guys better not skip this one. Like, I love, why does this thing matter in the world?
Yep.
Because that's where you can say things about purpose, which everyone wants to be at the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and, be a self-actualized person. So we all want our work to matter, and we all want to be advocates for our clients. So that's where you can use words like should and ought. You ought to be able to expect that when someone sets up your network, it's secure. It's not right that some people take your money and you're still so easily hacked. It's important because we care about people that we protect their confidentiality and their social security numbers. That's a full extension of how we care about people, right? Even that, you don't have to get overly sappy to use words like should and ought. And what happens is people read things like that, you guys, and they go, yeah, I think that. Or it's not even that overt. They just go, oh, interesting. And they start to think there's high perceived value from this person. There's high perceived value from this person. So then they go sign up for something else, or check out your website, or accept your invitation to have a discovery call, because they resonate with you. Other questions about this? Okay, so this is my offer to you. I love brainstorming on this stuff. This is a superpower for me. You can literally walk me through your product and services at the top and expertise, and I can just make shit up. I mean, let me just be really frank. I'm just a really good brainstormer. 80% of it you'll want to keep, 20% of it we would throw out, but I really think this is fun because it's this content generation idea where no idea is too crazy. You just stick it down and then you decide which things to keep. But if you're trying to make it be perfect as you go through the exercise, you're going to make the exercise too difficult. And also, by the way, if this feels overwhelming, do half of it. Pick 2 products and services, 2 areas of expertise, and half the questions on the left. Because it's for you, right? This is for you.
Are you going to send out this template?
I am, after I add the line that's missing. Yes, I am. I'll send it out. And so this is my offer to you. It is not in the scope of the class, and I don't want to coordinate it because I've got a lot going on. But if anybody is really jazzed about doing this and you want to use the V5O portal to organize a time where we would all sit and work on these together, we can be in a breakout room and you can work on your stuff together, and I can show up and I'll be a brainstormer too. Or if you want to do it without me, that's okay too. But I would be happy to help with that. And I could help, I could do some coaching along there. I don't want to be responsible for setting that up because I don't want to push a boulder up the hill. So if anybody's looking at this and says, I'm really going to try, and that sounds really fun to me, if you will start a post in the portal and somebody would, take the reins on getting a doodle poll together, or sometime where we had a calendar, I will do an extra session where I do this with you. But it needs to be driven by someone here and not by me, because it's a lot of additional work. But I would be happy to do it if you want to do the work. Okay, so you all think about that. Okay, I could hang out just a bit longer, but I want to end us on time, and we are 2 minutes over. So a couple other principles are giving lots of white space, and that you have like one main idea. In writing, we talk about this idea of a controlling idea. So that is why that grid is helpful, is because we're saying, I'm talking about cybersecurity and what's going on in the news. So I just pick one thing to talk about and I stick with that in that post. I could do that for a week, or I could do that for a day. It's up to you. I want to remind you that I do have an affiliate link to this larger professional brand class. If you feel like your professional brand really needs some love and you want to double down on more lessons around it than what's in the scope of this, I do recommend my friend Mark, and I've got a link here where you can learn more, or you can DM me about it. We will be here again next week for our last session, where we'll talk about how LinkedIn fits into the overall sales process. And I think you all have all my contact information. I'm also in the portal. Lane, anything else we want to be sure to say?
Lane had to step off.
Okay,
So.
sorry, Kim, I couldn't tell.
It's okay.
If there's stuff in the chat, I'm sorry. I think people are just telling me they got to go. Okay, so I'll hang on a few more minutes. Kim, I think we're ready to stop. Let me stop recording.